Okay, recording has started. Good afternoon, everyone, to our 26th Workplace Ninja User Group Netherlands Tuesday webinar, which is a lot. We should do something about that. We couldn't organize these meetings without any sponsors. So even though that we are doing these meetings virtually, we actually need sponsors. And we will actually use their resources when we have the ability again to go on premises again and have actually physical meetings. While we also learned from the COVID-19 crisis that actually with today's possibilities that the earth is flat and that it's actually quite easy to invite speakers from outside of the Netherlands to actually speak for us. And I think that today is a good example of that as well. So welcome, Thorsten and Michael. It's a real pleasure to have you. And even though you live slightly nearby, we are really thankful that you are willing to present for our user group. So welcome. So for housekeeping, if you want to follow us, we have all kinds of channels where you can reach out to us. Please follow us. If you want to mention us on Twitter, please use the hashtag WPNinjasNL. That's the hashtag that we use for our user group. We have some upcoming events. The next one is in 2 weeks with our own Peter Dahlmans. Peter Dahlmans will probably tell us something about protecting and securing corporate data in his June edition. So you're welcome to join us. The week after, we have a live Ask Us Anything session with Ronnie and Frans about teams and security. So also a little bit related to the topic we have today. And the week after, we have a well-known speaker, Jeremy Moskowitz, telling us about how not to get hacked. So that will be an interesting session as well. If you signed up for our meeting using Meetup, you will actually automatically get newsletters from us where actually more details about the session is being given and how you can join those meetings if you want to, of course. So, well, that said, we are always looking for experienced but also not experienced speakers, because we want to provide a platform where you can actually become a speaker if you want to. So if you are interested, have an interesting topic to share, you can actually go to the session-ized URL. It's still the RWMUG URL, but it still works. And please submit a session. And if you're not feeling comfortable of speaking on your own, well, we might involve some more experienced speakers and get you up to speed into the world, a fantastic world of community speaking. So please let us know, submit a session, reach out to us if you have something interesting to share, and we are more than willing to help you out in that case. So for today, we have Thorsten and Michael. Well, you can introduce yourself later on, but I want to give the presentation to either one of you. And thanks again for taking time to present for us, guys.
Thanks for having us. Yeah, really a pleasure.
Okay, so let me just upload the file once again.
A lot of contents or a lot of data to be uploaded.
Yeah.
But I have enough bandwidth. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Welcome, everybody. Also from my side. If you're not familiar which topic you currently have, we will talk about Teams phone system and why we think it's a must-have for a modern workplace. Where are we? Or who are we? My goodness, German and English. Sometimes it's mixed up. And yes, I'm coming from Germany. I'm coming from south of Munich, so pretty far away from also Thorsten, but from the Netherlands as well. I'm an MVP for Office Apps and Services is the official title, which is basically that's a good start for teams. So I'm also working with teams in projects, different topics from the implementation, from the consulting perspective, traditional technical implementation, but also user adoption, change management for these cloud projects. These are the main topics also for the company I own. And I'm running together with Thorsten a community project called Talk Microsoft 365, which is a German format, video/audio podcast. So if you understand German, you can follow us and you get some information about the hot topics from Microsoft 365, which is sometimes a bit Azure. We are both not the Azure experts, so it's just fundamental stuff, I think. Windows and Teams, Office 365, everything which touches and is included in Office 365. And I'm also the host for the Teams user group in Germany with a chapter in Munich, and the co-host of an adoption and change forum in Munich as well. And that's enough of myself. Now, Thorsten.
That's me. Yes. So yeah, my name is Thorsten Pickhan. I'm also from Germany. I'm living nearby Cologne. I guess this is the biggest city nearby myself. I'm very active in the community, or I try to be active in the community, so you can find me on Twitter as well. I'm blogging a little bit about Office 365 and my experience and knowledge I have from my role as a UC consultant. So I'm working as Microsoft UC consultant since almost 10 years now, currently at Glucania GmbH in Germany. I have a weekly video podcast or blog or video publishing. I don't know how is the right word for this, but yeah, for all the German listeners or the German understanding people here, I publish on a weekly basis an Office 365 quick tip video where I take a deeper look into the different features and functions of Office 365 and the services around it, with a focus on the end user, so how to use them to be more productive in the daily work. And yeah, M365 talk, Michael already mentioned, and I'm the host of the Teams user group here in the Ruhr area in Bochum, when we can meet us on site. And then I guess we can start with the session itself.
Exactly. Today we will talk about why we think Teams telephony is actually necessary for a modern workplace, what you can achieve, what you can do with the telephony, and we will talk about how you get the best out of the telephony, also with a technical deep dive about the improvements you can make beside the default configuration you have when you just implement the telephony in your system or in your environment. And we do have
some secret ingredients if you stay till the end of our session. We will lift up them at the end, I guess. So, all right, let's go. And first of all, we would like to start with a short introduction about what is a request for a modern workplace. So, what is the foundation of a modern workplace? What are the parameters? And first of all, or when we start, modern workplace, of course, is a topic we are talking about 2 or 3 years now in the IT. Of course, it has some pressure and huge amount of usage since the pandemic started in March last year. But first of all, when we are talking about a modern workplace, I guess we have all the same opinion it defines that we should be able to work from anywhere. So it doesn't matter if we are in the office itself or in the home office or on a journey in a hotel, on the restaurant. If we like and have the time, we should be able to work. And of course, this work should be immersive, so extensive. So the access to the data should be there. I should have access to all my data, not only to a part of it with a local cache or something like that. I should be able to have all the data in access. And of course, I would like to have all programs in use with every tools and all the stuff around. Then the work should be secure. So if I have any malware on my local PC, it should be safe that this malware will not be transmitted into the corporate network or to my workplace. And if I delete something accidentally, for example, it should be able that the admin can, or myself, can do a restore of this data, so the work is loss-free, of course. And last but not least, this is more important than ever, that we can work together on these different data and projects. So it doesn't matter if we are working in a team or over different departments or even different locations from different home offices, for example. It should be able to work together. And which tool can give us all these features? Of course, this is Microsoft Teams. Because with the help of Microsoft 365 services, we can work secure. So we are using Office Defender, for example. We can protect our data with Azure Information Protection if we configure this, or data loss prevention. We have a client with Teams, which is able to work from nearly every platform. So we have a support for Linux, we have a support on mobile, we can work with a tablet, with Apple devices, with Windows machines. It doesn't matter, all the stuff is fulfilled with Microsoft Teams, and therefore it's a central hub for the collaboration and the teamwork as well. But at the end, most companies, when the people are working from home, of course, are missing the telephony. Because at the end, there's a desk phone in the office, and it's stands there, and it's not possible to cut the line and to take it with me home. So there is currently no flexible solution how to get the telephony and to be reachable with the office phone number at home or when I'm on travel. And yeah, we will see how Microsoft Teams can help us in this special case, how to get the telephony into Microsoft Teams and what we should consider about it. And Michael, please take over.
Yes, basically you have just two options. And that sounds pretty easy. You just can go for cloud only. And the other one is you can still use some on-premises components. Usually cloud only sounds good because cloud only means I do have a service. I don't mind about anything else, just book the service, throw some money into a company, and I get what I want and I get what I need. But there is the option on premises. Why? And this question also why you maybe should think about which is the right one for you or your company or your customers, we will talk about in the next slides. In general, when we talk about the cloud-only solution, we do have some dependencies, and we do have the same or slightly the same dependencies for the cloud and on-premises solution. That's something Thorsten will tell you.
I will try to tell. So, first of all, what I need to have Microsoft Teams phone system in action. Of course, we need Microsoft Teams as a platform, and we need the phone system add-on to get the telephony working in Teams. So both components are the foundation for the telephony in Microsoft Teams. And here it depends on the current licensing plan. So if you have the E5 license with all-in, you already have all the necessary components like the Teams license, of course, and the phone system add-on. If you have an E1 license or E3 license, then you have Teams already included in your plan, and then you need to buy an add-on which is called Teams Phone System. With these both components, you have the foundation, as I said, for telephony. And then we have two options. The first option is a calling plan. This is a cloud-only solution where Microsoft will become your PSTN provider. And here you have to buy, of course, the calling plan in addition to the foundation itself. The calling plan itself are packages of calling minutes, and Michael will explain in a few slides and give you some details. The second option, there we also have the foundation with Microsoft Teams and phone system, but then we are talking about direct routing. And hopefully here it comes. So this is the second option, direct routing. As you can see here, the foundation is the same. So we still are talking about Microsoft Teams and phone system add-on to have the telephony available in general. But instead of migrating the phone numbers to Microsoft Teams, or that Microsoft becomes our PSTN provider, we are using a session border controller on premises, and that's why it's a hybrid solution. And on the session border controller, we can connect the PSTN connection from our current provider. And then the session border controller will route inbound calls to Teams. So two options, calling plan as a cloud-only solution, direct routing as a hybrid or mixed solution. And then some details now from Michael.
Yes, because I've mentioned it earlier. There are some pros, but there are still some, I don't want to use the term cons. Actually, I did it on the slide, but it's maybe something you should just take in consideration before you make your decision. So first of all is Microsoft will be your PSTN provider. That means you transfer your telephone number to Microsoft. Even by, you have the option to buy one, existing one, which is owned by Microsoft already, and you can get a bunch of numbers, 1, 10, 100, even more, and you get a phone number range, which Microsoft provides you. The other option is you migrate your existing PSTN phone number range to Microsoft. And this brings some tricky parts with it. One is you do have some requirements, some regulation in every country, especially for telephony. And in Germany, we do have one regulation, which is a pretty tough point. For example, that means we cannot migrate a single number of a whole bunch. So if you have 100 numbers from 0 up to 99, you are not allowed to migrate just the number 50, for example. You have to migrate the whole bunch of numbers. So this is registered to you. If you want to move it to another provider, just go ahead, but you have to move everything. But that's not bad at all, because everything you are handling now is in the cloud. Microsoft is your PSTN provider, but Microsoft is also your provider for everything else, like the service itself, the foundation Thorsten told you a couple of minutes ago. They're responsible for Teams as a service. They're responsible for the connection, and you have a single provider. But this solution is unfortunately not available in every country. Beside the idea to use Microsoft as a full PSTN provider for a global environment, it depends on the countries where you are or where the customer actually is. So there are about, I think, 32 different countries where you can buy some telephone numbers or migrate your phone numbers to Microsoft. And 32 is far away from all the countries where Teams is available, right? So not every country where you get Teams as a service is actually enabled for the telephony with a cloud-only solution. It's growing, to be fair to Microsoft, but it takes a while. I think between the current enablement, and you see there are some red dots on a global map. These are new ones coming this month. The rest is came. I think the last change was 2 years ago, roundabout, maybe 2.5. So it was quite a while pretty silent from any adding the countries, and especially if we talk about Africa, South America, Middle East, or even the harder ones, Russia and China. Thorsten is smiling, the harder ones, because there are some regulations from the telephony perspective, which makes it pretty hard for external companies coming in and be the provider over there. That's something which is still challenging for Microsoft. I think that's the best description, because otherwise they just would throw it in every country and just throw some money into the countries and get the certification as a provider. It is pretty hard, and sometimes it takes quite a while. So if you start with your idea to go to the cloud and the country is currently not available, don't bet your money on it. So choose maybe the other option. And the next one is there are not traditional flat rates available. Traditional flat rates are something like you buy 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 minutes and pay a specific fee, a specific rate. With Microsoft, you have the option to buy a license per user. And this license is or can be a bit tricky. Because you buy this license per user, there's something you pay per user per month. You still have the option to pay per minute in some cases, and I will show you some other points in the next seconds. Because when you buy the licenses for a user, it's not just buying the calling plans you have heard from Thorsten a couple of seconds ago or minutes ago. It's not just buying a single license and that's good. You do have some different licenses. They are called calling plans, but they have different options. And these different options are domestic/national calls and international calls. That sounds pretty easy, right? But for the national calls, you get at least 2 different options. At least because you do have 120 minutes as a package, as a calling minute package. You can get some national minutes within the international calling plan. And if you have an enterprise agreement, you can still get something like a 240-minute package for national minutes only. That sounds actually not so bad, but in a traditional flat rate situation, you buy some minutes, let's say 1,000 minutes per month, and you don't care who's dialing these 1,000 minutes. By buying these specific calling plans, you get the minutes pooled, but only for the users with the same license. So, for example, on the left side, here, over there, you see the licenses are pooled for 4 users, which gives us 480 minutes. You do have some other users, in this case 2, with also national minutes going on the 240-minute package. They got 480 minutes as well, but they don't share this whole bunch of national calling minutes. They just share it between the same pool of license. So both users with 240 sharing these minutes, and no matter who who makes the most calls, they can use them up. It's not bound to a single user, but the 4 users on the other side are sharing the same 480 minutes, or their own 480 minutes. That's maybe the better description. Even no matter who's dialing 480 minutes, it's not using another package. It's not using another pool of minutes, even if it's the same type, because it's another license. The same is for international calls. You do have different packages for, or actually different calling minutes for international calls, depending on the country you are ordering this. In the international package, you get, for example, in Europe, 600 minutes for international calling, and in US, 1,200 minutes for international calling. And these are still available, or just available for everyone in the which has the license. And if someone with a national only call, with a domestic only call calling plan, they may have some situations where they want to make an outbound call to an international number. That's possible. It's not a limitation. Maybe it is, unless you buy the communication credits. The communication credits are another license, which is basically free for use. But to get it really done, to use it actually, it is you have to spend some money on it. You have to fund. I'm not sure how you order some money. You book some money on a prepaid card on this, and you pay per minute on a full rate, coming with the definition of coming outgoing calls, where is the call coming from, and what's the target number. So, for example, I'm dialing out from the Netherlands to Austria, then I do have different rate as dialing out from Netherlands to Russia. And this is something which is really, really complex if you start with the calculation, and it's a fun for every controller. The general idea is, think about who's currently dialing out the most for international, get the idea about the approximately minutes per month, and then calculate, does it make sense to spend some money on an international plan, which is round about 20, 22, 24 euros, or just give a smaller package and use the communication credits. So that's something you should consider in your planning phase, and it's not easy. But it's Microsoft. So you got an idea about that. Licenses has never been easy for Microsoft or with Microsoft. The last one is just the general statement. You have a single point of contract. Contract and contact.
Yeah.
And I mentioned it earlier. You buy a service, right? Everything will be provided for Microsoft. You're good to go. Perfect. Everything is just go ahead and if something went wrong, go to Microsoft and blame them, because they own everything except the network to Microsoft. But I hope this is already prepared. Why is the other option available beside the countries? Yeah, this other option with a local component, with an SBC to be precisely here, gives you the best of both worlds. So you can enable every user for the telephony with Microsoft Teams. And still can you go for some more complex scenarios. For example, you do have an existing connection or contract which was bought a half a year ago or 1 year ago, and you don't want to spend a huge fee just to get rid of the old contract, or you have some really good conditions for the contract. For example, you are dialing out from your phone number, from your office phone number to your mobile phone, and you get a really cheap rate, or even it's included, a flat rate, for example. And in this case, you can use the SBC to connect the local connection to Teams, to the cloud service. Thorsten will be a bit precisely about this in a couple of slides. The next one is you can connect some legacy devices, if you have some. Fax is, it's a joke since 20 years, I think. Fax is dead already. And you see it in every company, at least one. There are some solutions. You can get rid of a fax device, but sometimes these are some devices. They are a bit more, but this is one of the first one when you think about an analog device. The other one is you can get another phone solution for your company. So I'm working with enterprise customers basically the whole time. And every company is thinking about reducing the costs for telephony. This is one point is for reducing local components, maintenance contracts, local contracts for telephony. And there is an option with getting a centralized zip trunk, which means you bring the telephone numbers from other countries and other locations on a single point of contact, your headquarter, your data center, whatever it is, instead of spreading everything into a small location. This is basically the concept of a centralized zip trunk, and you can bring it on a redundant way to your environment and use it, for example, for different countries. Bring it to a single point in your network, connected to Teams, and you're good to go. You have reduced a ton of complexity. But there are some requirements. Let me say it this way. And Thorsten will explain what kind of requirements you have when you think about the telephony.
Yeah. Of course, we have some considerations we have to make when we plan to migrate the telephony from the classic PBX system to Microsoft Teams, because at the end we have a given infrastructure. The users are trained on the old PBX system or on the classic PBX system. Perhaps it's better to say this. So they know the different features and functions, and then they, of course, will ask why we should migrate to Microsoft Teams. Everything is working here. So, and as an architect for Microsoft Teams phone system, as I said, there are some things you need to consider when you do this, the migration. You plan the migration, so it's more easier for your users to like Microsoft Teams as a phone system, of course. So first challenge we have is, of course, the user itself. The user normally is using a desk phone. In the classic PBX, perhaps the user already knows to use a headset because he is already using a soft phone. And this is also the tip from our side, the recommendation. When you switch to Microsoft Teams, try to use headsets most of the time. So if it's possible, use the migration to replace the desk phone, the classic desk phone, to a headset, so the user is able to use the headset together with a soft client itself and to do inbound, outbound calls, because then you have the most of Microsoft Teams. Then you have all the functionality in Microsoft Teams for collaboration, to exchange information, to chat, and then the telephony comes in, and the headset is the only one you need in addition, so the client is ready to go. And of course, the headset is also used for internal Teams-to-Teams calls or for Teams calls to external partners who are already using Teams too. But most of the time, there are some colleagues, they don't like the headset. I will not say they hate the headset, but they don't want to use the headset. In this case, of course, you have option to implement IP phones. There are a lot of vendors setting Microsoft native supported IP phones, which touch functionality, you need power over Ethernet, of course, but then you can place a phone on the desk, and they are able to use them to do inbound and outbound calls. Then some customers are using DECT. DECT is a technology for wireless telephony. You normally, it had a rooming functionality. So if you have a DECT a campus, for example, on the company area, you can start the call on one point, go over the campus, and the phone call will not be lost or interrupted. Unfortunately, there is currently no solution with native Microsoft Teams integration, and that's why DECT is here stroked out, because currently there's no native solution for it. Here we have to find another solution, like using the Microsoft Teams mobile app on a phone and to use the GSM or VLAN functionality. The next we need to consider, of course, are the conference rooms. Many companies have many conference rooms. All conference rooms have some kind of telephony solution in place, and how we can deal with this. First of all, Microsoft gives us a special license for it. It's called Teams Room License. The Teams Room License is a combination or a package of different licenses. It includes the Teams license itself. It includes also the phone system add-on, the dial-in conferencing, so your attendees for a conference are able to dial in via PSTN to your conference or your meeting. And there's also included a Microsoft Intune license, so you are able to manage the different Teams room devices in the conference rooms by cloud, by Microsoft Teams, by Microsoft Intune. So you can configure special conditional access rules, or prepare the configuration, how the if you have still Skype for Business Online in place, if this should be your main application for the conference room, or if Microsoft Teams should be it. And there are some other stuffs and settings you can configure with Microsoft Intune for the Teams room device. And of course, the Teams room device itself, there are also many vendors available, and Teams room device is a combination of a little computing unit together with a webcam and some audio devices, microphones, and then they can be arranged for a professional conference solution. And last but not least, if you have smaller conference rooms, there are the Collet Bars. They are based on Android, and it's a little bar where the camera and the audio devices are integrated in one single device, and you put it on the screen, under the screen, or on the screen. It depends on your situation and your setup in the room itself. Then we have also some public areas where telephones can be available. For example, in the library, these telephones are special because there's no dedicated user assigned to, so there's not I don't know, Mickey Mouse, which will be assigned to this phone. They are more in an open area, and therefore I would like to have perhaps some restrictions, so which numbers can be used for dial out. It is possible to do international outbound calls or to call premium rates, and so we have to pay special attention to these phones in the public area. And here too, Microsoft is providing a special license. It is called Common Area Phone License. It includes Microsoft Teams, also the phone system add-on, and the Intune license to manage the device. And at the end, it's more cheaper than the normal E3 license, of course. Here you can use, as I already said, an IP phone, which is supported by Microsoft and has a native Microsoft Teams support. Then we have, of course, a front desk or hotline functionality, which we should be aware of. The front desk itself normally has a special software where all inbound calls for the company coming in, and then the attendant will transfer these calls in the company itself. Sometimes there's a special software or there's a welcome message. There are special call actions inside of our business hours or outside of our business hours, and how we can migrate these functionalities to Microsoft Teams. The best way is to use auto attendant and call queue. These are two components in the Microsoft Teams admin center. Here you can configure all the stuff. For example, a welcome message or schedule for your business hours and what should happen to the call outside of your business hours. You can route these calls to a special call queue where the caller will get a music on hold during the caller is waiting for an agent. You can configure different agents for a specific call queue. And since a few weeks, it's possible to connect a call queue to a Teams channel, and then you get also a little dashboard for the specific call queue, so you can see on the call history which calls are made in the past, which agent responds or answers the calls, how long the call takes. And you can also see if you have different agents in the call queue, which agents are online and can take a call and which agents are not online. The important stuff here in comparison to a classic PBX is that you do not have to buy any special licensing here anymore. So if you buy the first phone system add-on, both features, auto attendant and call queue, will be enabled in your tenant and you can directly use and configure them. So no special license here. For the hardware itself, of course, you can use headsets at the attendant place or classic Microsoft Teams IP phone. And if you needed a special switchboard software, since a few weeks, these are also available. For example, from Landis Computer, there's a special attendant pro license, which extend the normal Teams functionality, and it makes it easier for the attendant or the employee at the front desk to transfer calls in the company itself. And last but not least, as Michael already explained, we have some legacy endpoints or analog endpoints like fax machines, modem connections, door opener, alarm systems. Usually they are working in an analog mode, so they have normal cabling. And these are really legacy products. And here it's important to know that these products are not supported by the calling plan. Microsoft doesn't provide any mechanism to connect the legacy devices to the cloud-only solution. When you have some analog endpoints, you have to use Microsoft Teams direct routing, and therefore you need the SBC, the session border controller, and the session border controller is required so the endpoints, the analog endpoints, can register on the SBC itself, and here on the SBC you can do the call routing to them. And yeah, in the last few seconds I talked a lot of SBC and session border controller, and now let's have a look at what is SBC or a session border controller. A session border controller translates as the provider zip to Microsoft Teams zip. This is very important, and yeah, it's very common. So of course there's RFC for zip, which described what commands are allowed in the protocol zip, what are the parameters of zip. So usually it's a UDP or TCP connection on port 5060, for example. This is referenced in the RFC itself, but as usual, the different vendors have an own interpretation of these RFC, so they are allowed to add something in the zip here and add something there, and then the zip A will not fit with the zip B because they are talking or using different mechanism. A good example for this is for the very simple thing to put a callee on hold. There are different methods to use or to transport this information in zip itself, and therefore I need an SBC, because an SBC can use the zip communication from our provider, translate it to a supported zip language to Microsoft Teams, and then Microsoft Teams is able to interpret the commandlet for the call is on hold. And then everything is working fine and pretty well. So therefore we need a session border controller. In addition, an SBC or session border controller is some kind of firewall for zip communication. All the networkers will kill me, I guess, but from my point of view, it's some kind of firewall for zip communication. It protects me against zip route from any script kiddies outside of the world, because you do not forget that the SBC is connected and most of the time directly to the internet. We need a public IP address. We need to communicate directly with Microsoft Office 365, but also to our PSTN provider. Normally, this is encrypted with an SSL certificate, of course, but script kiddies are able to scan my outside border of the firewall and find the open port UDP or TCP 5060, and then they can try to do some VoIP fraud. So send me some packages and try to use my phone connection to initiate very cost incentive premium rate calls. And here I can use the SBC to protect me against these attacks. At the end, the session border controller can be physical, but also virtual. It depends on my data center and my setup I would like to have. And of course, can you switch? Yeah, move forward. Perfect, thanks. And of course, we are also able to implement an SBC virtual on a public cloud platform like Amazon AWS, or Microsoft Azure. Just go into the Microsoft Marketplace, Azure Marketplace, search for audio code, and then you will find the SBC itself. So we talked a lot, Michael. Next slide, please. Yeah, I hope the information are good so far. So a short technical deep dive into Microsoft Teams direct routing and the media flow itself. The normal media flow we have in a Teams direct routing scenario is always that the cloud is implemented or will be used. So if you can click forward, Michael, or I can switch the control. Yeah. Here, first of all, we have the information. The user on the right side is sitting in the headquarter. It's a Teams user, and the user would like to initiate or to start a call. This information is transmitted to the Teams cloud, and therefore it passes through the firewall of the company firewall. These are the red line here. Then from Teams, on the Teams platform, it will check if the user is allowed to do outbound PSTN calls, and if so, it will transfer this information via zip to our session border controller. On the session border controller itself, you have normally a routing table like in a firewall, and then if there's a route implemented, it will forward this zip information to the zip provider, and the zip provider will then do the rest of the connection to the PSTN destination itself. So the phone is ringing on the other side, and this is also some media which is already transmitted. So from now we will see from the zip provider to the Teams cloud RTP data. This is the first audio we can see here, and in Teams itself, it will do a transformation to an audio protocol supported by Teams and will forward this audio information to the headquarter itself. And what you can see already here is that my audio data is transmitted or passed through the firewall 2 times. So I transmit the audio from the user to the Teams platform and also from the Teams platform to the SBC. When the SBC is inside of our company network, like the DMZ or in the local area network too. So we have a huge bandwidth usage on the firewall itself. And here Microsoft gives us some options to optimize this. And this we will see in the next slide. For this, Microsoft optimized the media flow. First of all, we have the classic media bypass. We already know this functionality from Link and Skype for Business. And media bypass will short the path of media traffic between the SBC and the Teams client itself. So it will try to do a direct connection between the Teams endpoint and the SBC. Important here is that in the old media bypass fashion, you have, or when you configure it, the user has to talk to the WAN IP address of the SBC itself. We call it hairpinning. So the firewall must support hairpinning because our audio data will go through the firewall and came back directly to the WAN IP address. And in the past, this was very complex, and most network guys had some trouble to implement this stuff. Therefore, Microsoft luckily implemented a local media optimization. So there are 2 ways from local media optimization. The first you can use is to optimize the media bypass itself, because with the optimized media bypass, you can configure on the SBC an internal network interface, and the client, if it's possible to reach over the network directly, the SBC internal interface will communicate with the internal interface. And then the configuration of the firewall is less complex. The audio traffic stay into your network, and there's really a direct connection, and you do not have to transfer the data to the WAN IP address of the SBC. So on the next slide, we will see, when I remember correctly, what is the media flow with local media optimization and media bypass. First of all, we have the initial call where we transmit the information and where Teams platform will check if we are allowed to do PSTN calls, so the same like in the non-optimized way. But in the case we have an audio channel between our caller and the callee, we will see that we have a direct connection to the SBC, and therefore the audio only goes to the SBC and from the SBC directly to the zip provider itself. And this, of course, will optimize our bandwidth usage on the firewall system itself. Now we will do a deeper look into the IP packages, I guess. So what are the requirements to implement this? First of all, I need a certified SBC by Microsoft with the current firmware. I need a list of all internal client networks and external IP used by the client connection to Microsoft Teams. And this information I will publish in the network topology in Office 365. So I need this information to create different network sites, different network subsites, and will relate them to network subnets. And this information is required, so Microsoft know if the client itself is inside of the corporated network and there's an option for a direct media flow to the SBC itself, or if the client is outside of my corporated network and then it's not possible to optimize the media and the media will go through the Microsoft Teams platform. And to show you this, I have some screenshots first of the implementation itself, so how to configure the network topology. It is all made with PowerShell. You also have the option in the Teams Admin Center to configure it, but not all stuff. So you can do a part in the Teams Admin Center, then you have switched to the PowerShell and do the rest. So from my point of view, the best is to use the PowerShell in the beginning directly, and then it's fine. So first of all, I have to configure the Trustedval IP addresses. Here I tell Microsoft which WAN IP address my clients will use to connect to the Microsoft Teams platform itself. And here I will give a description for it. Next step is to define the different network regions and to assign network sites to these regions. Here you can see that I defined the network region Contoso, and for the Contoso, I defined EU, US, and APAC as a network site ID. Why I did this? Because later on we will see that the network site ID we will assign to SBC, and with this information, Microsoft knows if when the user is in the EU site, there's a special SBC assigned to this network site, and then I can use media bypass. So next, when we did the configuration of the network side, we will assign, of course, network subnets to these different network sites, because with this information, with the client IP itself, Microsoft knows in which network site the client currently resides. And then the last step is to assign this specific network site ID to an SBC. Unfortunately, in the PowerShell commandlet, you can see that here Microsoft is talking about a gateway site ID instead of a network site ID. So for me, it took a while to get this together, but at the end, it's clear. So I define a network site ID, and to the network site ID, I assign the different client networks, and the network site ID is assigned to SBC, and in the combination of all these information, Microsoft knows where I'm currently located. So I also bring some slides about media bypass in action. It's only theoretical, but I hope that it explains very well. So first of all, our situation is that the user is external, so outside of my company network, and what you can see here is a so-called zip flow diagram, where we can see the different zip invite messages when the call is established. On the left side, you have the Teams platform. So as I told you earlier, the control protocol is always traversed over the Teams platform itself. So we can see in the zip flow always the Teams platform. In the middle, it's the device itself, so the SBC, and on the right, you can find the section for the zip provider itself. And the classic zip communication, when I start a call, is a zip invite. Then I will get a trying. And when the call is connected, I will get a 200 OK with the SDP information. And in the different packages, I can see some information like the destination ID, destination number, phone number, the source phone number, client IP addresses, and all the stuff. We will see it in the next image. So here you can see the different information in zip invite message. And what is here important when you click on the next, Michael, is the information about the XMS user location and the XMS media path. Here we already have the information that the client network is unknown by Microsoft, and therefore the Teams platform recognize the client as an external client, and therefore Microsoft Teams supposed to use the SBC from directly from the WAN IP address. So when you click one forward, please. Here we have the detailed information about the 200 OK. This information, or here in this package, is included which IP address should be used to do the audio connection. And when you click next, you will see that here in these lines there is a public IP address included for the SBC. So this is information. Please transmit the audio directly to the WAN IP address of the SBC. And now we have an example how it looks like when the user is internal. Same procedure. So we have on the left side the Teams platform, in the middle the SBC, and on the right our PSTN provider. And when you click next, we will get a deeper look into the invite, hopefully. Yeah, and here we can see that the user is located for internal. We also have the information implemented that the user site is EU. And when you click on next, you can see that here now we have the private IP addresses in the in the connection information itself. So the connection is made directly between the internal leg of the SBC and the Teams endpoint, and it will not traverse the firewall anymore. Okay. Then we have two modes in the local media optimization. First mode is that we have always bypass. So this means it doesn't matter if we already know the subnet. So if the Teams admin has defined the subnet and all the stuff, or if there's an unknown subnet like we have here in the example with Munich. When a user initiates a call, it will be transferred to the Teams platform. Teams transfers this to the SBC. The SBC will forward this information to the PSTN provider. And then we will get an audio connection from the different users to the SBC and to the PSTN provider itself. So we have a direct connection because we are using always bypass. The other mode is local only. In this case, we have a known subnet in Cologne. So the user is in a known subnet, and therefore media bypass will work. When we initiate a call from an unknown subnet because the admin forgot to implement all the network topology, we will see that the signaling is over the Teams platform to the SBC. But then when we come to the point where we need the audio connection is made from the endpoint, Teams endpoint, to the Teams platform, from the Teams platform to the SBC, and from the SBC to the PSTN provider. So there's no audio or media optimization anymore because the subnet is not known. And here you have the different options, and sometimes it's better to use the local only part when there are some laws or something like that which prohibit to use media bypass, for example, for users which resides in Russia and the SBC itself is in Europe, for example. So this is local media optimization. Another point where we can use local media optimization, as Michael already explained, is to centralize our zip trunks. So then we have a centralized SBC in our data center. It calls or it acts as a proxy SBC, and then we have some other SBCs in our branch offices. Perhaps you can switch one forward, Michael. Here we have an image, I guess. Yeah. Once more, yeah. What you can see here is that we have a user in a branch office. It will initiate a call. This is transferred to the Teams platform. The Teams platform is connected to a proxy SBC in the main data center. So it transmits this commandlet to the proxy SBC, and the proxy SBC knows that for this specific user, there is a downstream SBC in the branch office. and please forward these information about an outbound call to the SBC. Then it goes to the zip provider, and the audio, it's the same. We can use here media bypass. So the audio will go from the downstream SBC in the branch office to the user itself. And where we can use this, for example, when we would like to optimize the requirements to the firewall. Normally, we have the same requirements in the branch office like in the main data center. So we need a public IP address, a DMZ, an SSL certificate, and all the stuff. And this can be reduced by this topology by a proxy SBC and the downstream SBC. Or even in some countries, it's not allowed to use a centralized SBC in a central data center. And then it's also a good way to use a downstream SBC instead of a centralized SBC. I guess, yeah. Here's some benefits about local media optimization. We can reduce the bandwidth consumption and deliver a better call quality, of course, because there's a direct path between the endpoint and the SBC itself. I do not need to implement SBCs in the branch office with firewall rules and SSL certificates and all the stuff, and therefore I reduce the requirements for the infrastructure. And also the users which are working from home can benefit from it because they will use the global Microsoft network. So it's important that they enter, of course, the nearest entry point to the Microsoft global network, and then the audio flow is also optimized for them. That was a lot of information.
Yes, and a lot of technical information. Yeah. And this is really important when you think about the different scenarios you take in consideration for your deployment. So think about the cloud only. Think about the components with a scenario with a SBC on site. But you have learned there are some tricky parts where you maybe can get some optimization. And when we talk about the optimization, please, this is a topic which is really close to my heart because the technical topics are not so important. Sorry for saying that, Thorsten. You can implement that, but when you start to implement new technology, you don't win a heart just by changing the soft client or just by changing anything which breaks the existing workflow from your users. So take also the users with you. Think about the users you're currently changing from the existing workflow, from the existing way they work to the new way. And when we talk about the Teams project, Office 365 projects, and especially phone telephony projects, we do have some tricky parts as well. The first one is you may not know your company as good as you think you do. And this is coming from because you may have just from the IT perspective, some experiences with the users on a very IT related side. But telephony is way more complex because telephony brings you in a situation where you met some people outside of the general IT stuff, like sitting on a PC 8 hours per day. They usually work maybe as a floor walker in a retail area, in a manufacturing area, on a machine which is the main focus for your for bringing money into your company. But they touch the PC just once a day, twice a day, once a week, and the phone every hour. And then you try to change the telephony. That's tough for the users and tough for you as well, because if you lose the people, you don't win the project. And then you think what kind of users you have. There are some methods to identify these users. And basically, you create some personas, you identify the group of people, how they work, how they get in touch with the thing you want to change, in our case, the telephony. And then you get an idea how they work, how they touch the telephony on a daily basis or weekly basis. And after you created the different personas, you get an idea how to address these different topics. And to just give you an example, there's not the same way to address these topics for every persona you have. I just picked up some specific personas here. Let's start on the left side with the C-level. So when you start to bring a new technology to the CXO, you have to have another way to bring it to them. For example, they are interested in a one-on-one training to make it quick and efficient, instead of just sitting in a 2-hour, 3-hour training with all the other people and raising some questions they are not interested in because they work completely different as the rest of the company. The assistances are very important, especially for the CXO level, because the assistances can stop your project. No one will hear that. No one wants to hear that, but it is like it is. If an assistant of a CXO is saying this solution is not working for me and it will never work for the company, the CXO will take a closer look on your project and maybe stop that. So talk to them, talk to the CXO assistances and get an idea what they need. What are the special requirements? Do they have a workflow with different buttons, a ton of buttons to make it quick to address different numbers, call forwarding settings, something like that? Go and take a look for a solution, even if it's a desk phone or maybe a third-party solution. Maybe they have the need for a traditional switchboard, or they have need for something which is more complex as someone else in the company is looking for. I did have a customer for where the CXO level with 4 people got 8 assistances, and they had some special requirements, and it was only possible to bring this solution, in this case Skype for Business, actually, just with a solution just for these 12 people. No one else had ever touched the system or this component, the third-party component, but these 12 people worked with it on a daily basis. To be honest, the assistance is more as the CXOs. But anyway, they are important, and they need a special way to address the topics and get the idea how they work. On an IT department, it's pretty common to just test the new products, the new software. So it's pretty common to use them as a pilot as well. And it's good because you get some idea about technical limitations. One of my customers just figured out every conference call with more than 5 people in a headquarter will have a bad quality. Everything under 5 people in a conference call is good. But it took us a while to identify the issue. If we would start just with a rollout, because we have just tested it, 4 people in a call is good, and we haven't had a pilot over there, we would have been in a really, really big issue for weeks. It took us weeks or months, to be honest, to get the right point and fix the issue. And they are also the right ones to get some feedback. When you start to deploy the technology, they say, that's good, that's bad, that's something I can live with, that's something you should change. They're also every time willing to test your new hardware. Everyone is in IT is just a grown kid. They just want to have the newest stuff. They want to play with it. They want to be the first with almost everything. So you get the idea how you can address different topics for your organization by getting the IT on a very early stage involved in the project. And then go to the special departments. For example, a salespeople is completely different from the calling way, how they make calls, how they receive calls, how they handle calls, how they the amount of calls, to be honest, is completely different. So they may need some other interactions, like the first training to get more details on it, a more specific use case scenario for them instead of using a general description, getting more feedback sessions, giving more chances to work with you because they have different needs as maybe the rest of the organization. And then talk about everything which is maybe common. And once again, don't forget the people who are working on the floor in the retail area, in the manufacturing area, in a hospital. So don't forget the people who are not basically sit on the desk for the whole day, and address it differently. And to make it even more complex, everyone has some special needs. Like I prefer a specific device which fits to me, just my personal device. And everyone has its own personal device. It's close to the mouth, close to the ears, and you may be wearing it on your head, and there it's coming. You may have not one device for everyone in your company. That's good, because Microsoft said, we know the issue, and please, vendors, gives us some options. And the vendors did. For headsets, for example, you get more than 70 different devices for just a headset. Because just a headset is not as easy as it sounds. You have something like on-ear, in-ear, over-ear, with cable, without cable, with Bluetooth, with DACT, with single ear, mono ear, dual ear, and something which is over the head, in the neck. You get the idea, right? There are so many different options. It's good for the users when they have all options, but it's too much for most of the users, to be honest. If you just put everything like the 75 devices and say, okay, make your choice, you will never be happy. There are different vendors, there are different scenarios, as mentioned before, and if you have to support everything, that's not good. That doesn't help you at all. So the recommendation is reduce the options, but give them an option. So instead of just saying, here, take your cable dual ear device, create something like a basket and create something to give them an option, let them choose. You still have the option to provide just the devices you want to support, your devices. You are the one who's responsible for giving the right devices to the people. Yes, give it to them. But they can choose from the different device types you support, and you get the best for everyone, and they have the feeling, at least the feeling, they are good to go with with my personal device. I had the option, I took the right one, which fits the best for me. Of course, sometimes you have some people which are not willing to go to the desk, to the headsets. And therefore, there are some desk phones as well. And once again, there's different vendors for this device type. The same is for Teams Rooms devices. For the desk phones, you have something which It's maybe an option if you have a company which is interested just to have some desk phones. Give them an option 1 or 2, and once again think about the different personas. If a CXO assistant is really looking for something like a desk phone, you find some really nice ones, and some which are really on a CXO desk, good looking. Same for the Teams rooms. There are some devices you can choose from a standalone device where you just go into a room and click on the display, go for the meeting. You invite the room, everything is prepared, and you just go into the room and everything is good. You don't need any hardware. But sometimes you have the need to travel and really want to have a device which is still capable to make good sound quality for a small conference call. Then you have some options as well. And once again, take a look for your hardware vendor, make a choice, and go for the idea. Is this good for me, for my company? Does it fit for many solutions? Does it fit for everyone who's traveling? Yeah. Then go ahead and create a basket to get everyone involved. That's it from one of the important points of user adoption. There are definitely more, because when you think about the implementation, there are so many different stages where you may be coming from. If you have a soft phone already, then maybe a headset is not a big deal. If you have a traditional phone system without any soft client, without any modern capabilities, you have a huge gap you will fulfill, or you want to close with Teams, and then you have some challenges, not only for the devices, but how to address the new topics. And yeah, that's it for the adoption part. And from our side, I hope we could bring you some insights about Teams and why we think telephony is the crucial thing for a modern workplace.
Oh, great. So, well, thanks, guys. That was quite a story. And I'm actually, I'm like an infrastructure guy, so I was a little bit confused about the SBC, because we normally relate it to server-based computing, which is
Okay.
something else. But
Yeah.
a lot of food for thought, I think, and it's just not just like buying a license and it works. And that, of course, keeps us consultants working.
Yeah,
So,
that's truly true. Yeah.
Yeah, so I want a question. You're now in the Netherlands. In the Netherlands, you have many SBC as a service. How that compares to Germany? Because I heard your story about SBC, but in the Netherlands, the majority of the implementations uses the SBC as a service.
Okay.
Is it also something which is in Germany? Because you don't need the complete median 1000 or whatever SBC.
Yeah. Of course, we also have here in Germany SBC as a service, or hosted SBCs, or sometimes you can acquire or get a service from the PSTN provider itself, and it will provide a connection directly into Microsoft Teams. This is some kind of hosted SBC. What we are facing or seeing in all projects here is that most of the hosted SBC versions or service managed SBCs are very static in their configuration. So if I need any special thing to do outbound number manipulation or to even connect an analog device, the managed service provider says, good idea, but currently we have a standardized product. It's not possible, sorry for that. And then most customers or many customers decide to use an SBC on their own, or to host it on their own. So I guess it depends on the managed service provider itself, how flexible it could be, and what options are given by the managed service provider there. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. In the Netherlands, you have a KPN, and you have the opportunity to integrate it with the BroadSoft platform, which is Cisco nowadays. So that you can make all changes, and appreciate about it. Willem Smith has a question. Can you tell us more about the call reporting integration to the Teams channel? I know you can hook up a call queue to a Teams channel instead of a group, but then you also told something about reporting. It was also new for me, so I'm also interested to see something about that or hear about it.
Okay. Unfortunately, my demo machine in Azure is currently not running, so I can't show you directly what was this mentioned, but there's some kind of dashboard. From my point of view, it's a dashboard, because you can see in the channel itself, you have a new tab. When you connect a call queue to a Teams channel, you will get a new tab in the channel itself. It calls calls, of course. And when you click on this tab, you have a call history for the call queue itself. So you see which are the inbound calls. You can see by whom of the agents was the call answered, how long the call was. If there's a voicemail, it's specifically mentioned in the call history. So there is probably the view like in the normal call UI, in the modernized call UI. So it looks very well. And what you also have is that on the right down corner, you have information about all agents which are part of the team or of the call queue. You can opt in and opt out directly. You do not have to go under settings and to opt in, opt out. You can do it directly in the specific call queue. And you have also an information about the current presence status of the agent. So if it's online, offline, away in the call, busy or something like this, you can see it directly in this special corner. Yeah.
Sorry, it's not Workplace Ninja branded, but that's actually how it looks like. That's a picture from Microsoft, and yeah, as Thorsten already mentioned, you get on the left.
This is the new call UI, the new call app, but it's more or less is the same. So you have in the middle this call history, and you also have a dial pad on the right upper corner. I guess.
Yes, I had to rewrite all my manuals. Thank you, Microsoft.
Okay. But when we talk about call reporting, I don't know if you already know the Power BI integration. So if you look for call queue Power BI in Google, you will find a package provided by Microsoft. You can install it or implement it in your Power BI desktop client, and then you will do a connection to the call queue CQD, call queue dashboard, to the CQD database. It will import all the calls related to call queue and auto attendant, and there you have so many different options to analyze how many calls you have on a specific call queue, how long the callee has waited to get an agent successfully, how long the call take the duration, how many calls was missed, and all the stuff. So just search in Google for Microsoft Call Queue Power BI, and then you will find the package provided by Microsoft, and then you have a lot of information and a good reporting on this. It's not specific like a professional contact center, or it's not so detailed like a professional contact center solution, but in most of our projects it fulfills the request by the customer to have a general overview about the action in the call queue and the auto attendant itself.
Okay, great tip. About the project. I have some more operational questions about call queuing. Two features I always run into is when nobody is on the call queue, then you have to wait to complete call queue instead that it skipped the call queue. So that's one of my problems. I was curious, how do you fix that in your projects? And the second one is even if you're offline, the call queue will get you if you're in the queue. So no matter what your status is, it will bring the call to you. And you have of course, you have the tenant routing option, but yeah, then it will only get the call when you're online, but you're never online because there's always a meeting. So I was curious, how do you manage that? Because there are for me some disappointments about the call queuing, which are not very practical in use in my scenarios in the Netherlands.
Okay, interesting to hear that. So in my project, to be honest, it works very well. So you have different options like round robin or serial or attendant routing, and when the agent it's offline, it should normally not call the agent because that's the function behind that. Perhaps you can try to use the opt-in, opt-out feature. Perhaps it
yes, that works. Yes, but you want if you're offline and okay, then it will you will get the call. But if you dial directly, you will get the voicemail, of course. So that was one of my experience.
Okay,
and
you recognize.
The other one is there's an option called presence-based routing.
Yeah,
but then you also always have to be green, and I've never seen someone who's green in Teams. There's always a meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, then perhaps attendant mode will fit to your needs, because then it doesn't matter which presence status you have, you will get the call. Only if you are on do not disturb or offline, then normally the call should not be signaled on your side.
Okay.
So
I will check that.
I didn't see this in my project, that when I'm offline, I get a call signaling for the call queue, to be honest. So yeah.
Okay, I'll dive into the Power BI. It was a great tip. I'll have to check it out.
Yes, of course.
So, well, you guys managed to actually took the 1.5 hour available to you guys. So, hey, because of time, I want to wrap up. So, first of all, I said it before, but thanks. We really appreciate you taking the time to present for our use group. I have some 3 slides left before we can close the recording. Great session, and thanks for that, guys.
Thank you.
So to close the meeting, our next webinar, June 22, with Peter Dalmans. Well, you can subscribe on our meetup page if you want to join us. So again, based on that, also thanks again to our sponsors. And have a nice evening. So that concludes the meeting.